Hello and welcome to the 6th module of the unit devoted to Yves Chevallard and the anthropological theory of the didactic, the ATD, in the project of ICMAI awardees multimedia online resources. This module deals with the notion of didactic system and the different units of analysis we can consider to analyze it. In particular, when we use the scale of levels of codeterminacy we saw in the previous module. So we will finally consider the teacher, the students, and what binds them together, the project of studying a piece of knowledge or of addressing an open question. We will start with didactic systems focused on a piece of knowledge that we will model in terms of praxeologies. We will consider three main types of questions and different possible units of analysis to deal with them. We will see in what sense the analysis proposed is part of a broad pedagogical paradigm called the paradigm of visiting words. Till now, we have talked about knowledge, about different types of knowledges that live in different institutions. The scholarly knowledge in scholarly institutions, the knowledge to be taught in the noosphere, the knowledge actually taught in school. This is the didactic transposition process. We use the notion of praxeology to model the kind of knowledge and also of activity that produces knowledge. Therefore, the process of didactic transposition corresponds to the dissemination of praxeologies among institutions. What about the teachers and the students? Where do they appear in the modeling framework proposed by the ATD? Teachers and students are roles or positions in what we call a didactic system, symbolized as S of X, Y, and P. X is the group of students, Y the group of teachers, sometimes reduced to a single person, and P is a piece of knowledge, a body of knowledge, or a praxeology, or also an element of a praxeology. A didactic system appears anytime a person or a group of persons, X, do something to modify their relationship to a given praxeology with the help of some Y, the teacher. We can say that Y teach P to X, or that X learn or study P under Y's supervision. We can imagine a variety of didactic systems. A group of students and a teacher with a study program made of a set of praxeologies. A person that studies something by herself, an autodidactic system. A student teaching or helping another one how to use a technique, etc. Thanks to the symbolic notation, we can also consider some more complex cases, like the teacher preparing a class or a course, or a group of teachers learning how to teach a given piece of knowledge, helped by a group of other teachers or educators, as in the case in lesson study activities. A didactic system is also an entity that evolves over time. And as Guy Brousseau says, it is fated to disappear once X know P. Let us consider three main types of questions about didactic systems. The first one is about the didactic stake P. What is P, the praxeology? When we ask about what is P, we are led to the praxeological or epistemological analysis. We have already seen that. The second questioning is the economic analysis, or didactic analysis in the narrow sense, because the three levels of questioning are didactic. We talk about economic because nomos in Greek means management. So economic is how to manage the house, how to manage the didactic system. And this analysis is concerned about the evolution and management of the didactic system. So what can X do to better learn? What can Y do to better help X to learn P, etc. And also from the outside. From the outside we can ask what are they doing and why. Finally, there is the ecological analysis about the conditions needed for a given didactic system to appear and last long enough for X to study P. But also about the constraints that hinder the evolution of the didactic system, which are sometimes critical. As I said before, we have already considered the first type of questioning in the previous units, the praxeological analysis, the analysis of the didactic transposition processes, and the elaboration of reference praxeological models to address all these questions. This is when we ask questions like, what is P, what is it for, what is it made of, where does it come from, why is it studied? We will come back to this later. The economic analysis affects the management and evolution of the didactic system. Here we can use the model of the didactic moments, which is closely related to the praxeological structure of the didactic stake P. There's also another model, the Herbartian schema, when the didactic stake is a question instead of a praxeology. We will see this point in module 7. Finally, the ecological analysis refers to the set of conditions and constraints affecting the evolution and the existence of the didactic system. The scale of levels of codeterminacy introduced in module 5 is a very helpful tool to analyze these conditions and constraints that appear at different levels. Do you remember? From the very specific related to the knowledge organization, where P is inscribed, to the more generic ones, coming from the hierarchy of institutions that enables the existence of the didactic system. Schools are usually a good environment for didactic systems. They are made for this. But they can also embed some of these didactic systems to exist. There are didactic systems that better live outside the school, in other institutions like the family or a research center or a group of friends. In some institutions, didactic systems are stable during some months or even years. In others, they can just live for short periods of time. This ICMAI and More website is trying to create online didactic systems to disseminate ICMAI laureate research tools and frameworks. What the destiny of such didactic systems would be is difficult to forecast. In the late 90s, during his work as a teacher-educator, Yves Chevallard introduced a model to analyze the evolution of didactic systems built around a local praxeology. It is the model of didactic moments. This model includes 6 didactic moments or dimensions that can appear in a different chronological order and also at the same time. They can coexist. The moment of the first encounter appears with a problematic question or a type of tasks that leads to the construction of a praxeology. Sometimes these moments appear at the beginning, but sometimes it can appear at the very end of the didactic process. And sometimes it doesn't appear at all, and one never discovers the raison d'etre of a given praxeology. The second moment, the exploratory moment, occurs when we decide to approach the type of task and do something to carry it out. The outcome is a germ of a technique. The technique develops through some work called the technical work. And it also needs some descriptions, explanations, justifications that corresponds to the technological theoretical moment. These moments usually appear at the same time. Finally, the construction of the techniques, the formulation of type of task, the justification provided, all this work is assessed or tested in the evaluation moment. It is also organized to be disseminated and connected to other works in the moment of the institutionalization. The model of didactic moments can be used to describe a variety of didactic processes. In some pedagogical traditions, the way to teach a praxeology very much relies on presenting its technological theoretical environment by means of a discourse and directly using its institutionalized shape. The technology and theory elements of the praxeology are put to the fore to the detriment of the praxis block. We failed to do something of the sort in this course, I'm afraid. In other traditions, where problem solving is highly valued, we let the students develop their own strategy to solve a certain type of task to finally present the well-accepted solution. The emphasis is here put on the praxis block, on the praxeology, sometimes to the detriment of the logos block. And we can imagine or describe many other situations, like teaching based on the technical work with techniques directly inferred from official theoretical discourses. We all know this type of didactic strategy. The model of didactic moments appears as a first attempt to describe the dynamics of the reconstruction of praxeologies. There is, however, a limitation, the size of the technologies, here being at most local ones. And remember that there are also regional and global ones. If we consider the whole scale of levels of codeterminacy, we can see that local praxeologies related to the themes or topics are organized into broader entities, sector, domains, and disciplines through complex processes of didactic transposition. The model of didactic moments does not consider them. These more general models are assumed, they are taken as given, and therefore not questioned. Here appears an unavoidable link between the praxeological and the economic analysis. The way we describe the evolution of a didactic system depends on what we consider as the didactic stake of this system, the praxeology P. And this P can have different sizes, depending on the reference praxeological model considered by the analyst, and also by the designer and the actors of the didactic system. As we saw in Module 2, the study of the didactic transposition process also helps analyzing and deconstructing the way contents are organized into topics, themes, sectors, domains, and disciplines. Let us take some examples. Let me give you a first one, the case of a local praxeology about the limits of functions in upper secondary education. It's a very simple case. The reference praxeological model proposed by Barbé et al. In 2005 consists of two different praxeologies. The first one provides the praxis block, that we call the algebra of limits, and the other provides the logos block, the topology of limits. We then obtain a bicephalius or two-headed praxeology, which results from a complex process of didactic transposition we are not considering here. Of course, the bicephalius structure affects the teaching and learning processes. In terms of the didactic moments, it may presumably favor a disconnection between the exploratory moment and the technological theoretical one. it also poses problems about what is institutionalized and assessed, the praxis or the logos. We will then hear this mantra that students, they do things without understanding. Okay. In general, to explain the kind of constraints teachers and students have to face, we consider broad praxeological organizations in the ATD, including a whole domain or even a sector, as in the case of proportionality or elementary algebra. The types of reference praxeological models proposed always exceed the level of the theme. I will not develop this point here. I will just let you see what some models look like and give you reference in case you are interested in going more in depth. Here is the schema of elementary algebra elaborated within the ATD in terms of computation programs and algebraization processes. This is the work of Noémie Ruiz-Munzón. It extends from elementary arithmetic, the realm of computation programs, to the work with formulas and with functions of several variables. What we consider here are not local praxeologies, but sequences of praxeologies. Finally, we can also use sequences of praxeologies and modeling processes among them to describe a whole sector or discipline as delimited in an entire one-year course of mathematics. You can find more details of this construction in the list of references of the module. In particular, it's the work of Berta Barquero. I will finish with a global comment. In the type of didactic systems we are considering, teaching and learning processes are established around bodies of knowledge that we describe in terms of praxeologies. This corresponds to what Chevallard calls the paradigm of visiting works. In this paradigm, what determines a curriculum is a set of works students have to visit under the guidance of the teacher. As the American historian and educator Paul Gagnon said in 1995, it corresponds to the essential core of learning that all students in a modern democracy have the right not to be allowed to avoid. Using the scale of didactic codeterminacy, we can briefly depict two phenomena linked to the paradigm of visiting works. On the one side, this paradigm tends to monumentalize the specific levels of the scale by ignoring the processes of didactic transposition and, in a way, by fixing the organization of disciplines into domains, sectors, and teams. In this monumentalization, the raison d'etre of the works of knowledge that are to be taught and learned, these raison d'etre tend to disappear. Students know, because they have been told, that triangles, limits, logarithms are important in mathematics, but they rarely know why they are important. Then again, when didactic transposition processes are ignored or considered as fixed and unquestionable, taken for granted, school knowledge organizations appear as the unique possible form of knowledge. There is only one kind of mathematics, the one that is taught at school or at the university. The paradigm of visiting works introduces a kind of frontier between the generic and the specific levels of the scale. In this situation, the specific levels tend not to be questioned. Only the pedagogical ones are. And all happens as if one could go directly from the general pedagogical principles, from the general pedagogical proposals to the specific managing of the didactic system. The example of competencies as curriculum definers participates of this phenomenon that tries to go from the general to the specific in a direct way, without passing through the didactic in a way. Well, I leave you, as always, with some frequently asked questions about didactic systems and their evolution. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you soon in the next module.